seemed kind of similar to mine. Um,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, you've been working on this kanji app for Android for some time now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can,
maybe how did you get started with that?
yeah, well, I'll give you a brief introduction to myself and kind of like how I got here and what I'm doing. And maybe from there, questions will afloat. But, I started programming way back in middle school in calculators. Well, more like in high school, beginning of high school. And, I quickly found out that I could put all the answers of my tests into the calculator. And I got really interested in putting games in there and then started writing little graphical applications where I can select menus and go find exactly what I wanted to look for. And so by high school, I knew I was programming. Like I love programming, and I went to college for it. In college, I did a exchange program to Japan in Tokyo and Risho in Gotando, and it was just like a summer program. But it was a lot of fun, and I knew like I needed to get out. So I'm from Maine originally. This is like countryside from a village of like 1,000 people. I needed to get out, and clearly didn't belong there. And so yeah, what I did is I joined a like human resourcing company. It's actually kind of known as like a black company, like it's not like a good company. And but they gave me a visa, and I came over here, and they were teaching people how to do embedded programming. At this point, I've already had like a full education and career in programming, so I had no problem. But they're grabbing up people who had various backgrounds, and some really didn't have programming, so they offer these classes. But for me, all I needed was Japanese, and so I wasn't alone either. So they got a bunch of us taking Japanese classes, and they soon put me over at Sony. So I worked at Sony in the Honsha in Shinagawa. Um, but there wasn't programming, and I was like, after 3 months of not programming, I was like, this isn't for me. And I found a Japanese company, and they were like a really small Japanese company. I remember interviewing them, and at the time, my Japanese was pretty rough. But I was like, hey, if you got a computer, I can show you what I can do. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got a computer. Comes back with the computer. I download a few things. I show him. And he's like, did you make this? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you make all of this? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're hired. And so that's how I found a job working as a small Japanese company, just social networking, met some people out at some bar one night and said, oh, my company's looking. So I worked there for 3 years and worked my way up. And it was great. But working at a Japanese company is very limiting. Like they put everyone in the same kind of um, uh, sort of conveyor belt, like regardless of your ability, like you're starting here. And um, so even though I had a team under me, I had like 8 people under me and I was doing all this stuff, it was like very little growth in terms of salary and other things. So after 3 years, I finally found a Western company, and that was Cerigo. So some of you might be familiar with I know. Um, at that point, I've already been doing mobile programming, so I joined on to do their mobile apps. And then while I was learning mobile programming and better at it, I was like, hey, I really want a kanji app. I'm here. I just spent 3 years in this Japanese company. I learned a lot of Japanese. I want to learn some. I'm taking the JLPT. These tools out there aren't very good. I'm an Android user, and so I just started making the Android app. I've actually made the iOS app first, but that was a just like a little like weekend project I did with some friends, and it was meant to be more of like a resume application. Like, hey, this is I can build, but not something that I really wanted people to use. It was just a limited project. Um, so yeah, I joined Cerigo and I built a lot of tools for them, and it was great. And then during this time, I got married and had kids. I started building this project on the side, and it slowly started getting traction. And we got bought out by DMM, a major company in Japan, which is really bizarre. They used to be a porn company, and they were trying to like rebrand themselves after amassing this huge wealth through porn. They're like, hey, we want to do all this other stuff. And they started getting into crypto and just a ton of different things. And one of the things they got into was language learning, and they bought out our company. And it was really weird because they didn't have a place for us at first. So if we first started going into the office, we would just see these like really inappropriate things on people's screens. I go look for like pens and open a drawer and be like, oh no, not this drawer. And so that was a really interesting experience. But after a while, like we were trying to work on other things, and I had my own projects, and I decided maybe now this is time to go independent, and I did. and it was a little rocky at first, but with all this new time, I was able to develop other projects, and so I don't just work on the Kanji app. I work on other Twitch projects as well, and really lucky because that afforded me a lot of time to be with my kids, and so it also worked out because at this point I've already been working in Japan for 10 years, so I was able to get my PR, and then once I got my PR, it was like 3 months later I was out, and
Okay.
here I am. That
Okay.
was 5 years ago, and then I continued to work on projects, and I now rent an office. After 5 years of being in the house, it's like I need to get out. It's like it's great at first. It was like I was like so happy that I'm independent. I can work from home. I don't got to commute. And then COVID hit, and then like everyone's in the same boat, and then like no one's going out. It's like okay, this isn't so good anymore. So I got an office and just shared space. I mean, it's my space, but I share it with friends, and so people come in, and I love that. I love being able to talk about ideas and just have people around. Sometimes when you just need a break.
That's awesome. When you first decided to go independent, had you already like were making enough revenue through these projects to support yourself, or what
Yeah,
was
so
that?
I had it was great. Like I had a salary, and then I had the one project at a time that was we're getting close to my salary. So I had dual income, which is great. And so when I went independent, I dropped down to less than half my salary. So that first drop was bad, but at least I did have something. I was like basically going back to an old salary. Um, but 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 like like I said, it wasn't like I just gave up everything and hope for the best. I did have something already going.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That's kind of a similar situation to myself. Well, I've been doing my own thing, lots of different projects at the same time, but having some income from your own product definitely gives you that confidence. And so that first product was then the Kanji app that was making
So yeah,
money.
that was the content for Android.
Okay, and like, how does it make money?
So it's a free app. I try to model the my business the same way like I would want to see something. Like I don't like ads, so it's no ads. I don't like the subscriptions, so no subscriptions. What I do is I try to just give someone fully free dictionary, fully free study of everything up to the beginning kanji, and then it's a one-time upgrade. And so it started out really cheap, just a few dollars way back in the day. It's slowly gone up in price, but it's about $15 now. But I try to keep it pretty low. And then what I've done is I've worked with other people. So along the years, I've run into some good people. John over at Outlier, and they produce data. They try to do some research on like etymology, and so they have all this deep dive into the history of this and the breakdowns of the kanji. And I was like, hey, we can put your stuff into my app and sell it that way, and it's great. And then I started talking to another guy, Andrew Scott Cunning, who was published through Konansha, and he has the kanji learning course data, and he's a great guy. I've been talking to him and working with him, and I got some more data from him that I'm excited to put into the app. But these are all like collaborations and reselling, and so we figure out what works and then we sell them. But of course, then what's happened is that the total cost of the app is kind of expensive. You want to buy all the add-ons, and it's tricky because it's like I've it's slowly come like a little bit of a platform. So if you're like, oh, I don't want to use Steam on Windows because it would be $80 million to buy all the games. It's like we don't have to buy them all. But I do recognize that some people feel like they need to buy everything, and then it does get expensive. But yeah, so it's just a single purchase, and you really get an idea of the demographics of who's studying and where. You think there wouldn't be enough people studying Japanese. It's very niche, studying Japanese specifically on Android. I am working on the iOS version, but what's fun about the Android version, it's very worldwide. So the app is in 30 languages. I have about 1,000 volunteer translators. Set up a project where they can contribute, and so that's been really fun to kind of coordinate and seeing that. It's always fun to it's really cool when people and sometimes even like less popular languages, like in Turkey, and they're like studying using your app all in Turkish, and like that's really cool.
Well, that's awesome that you've got it to be so international there. So, like, I guess with the pricing, are you doing any price, I don't know, discrimination for different countries? Like, obviously, someone from the US can afford more than
Yeah.
somewhere for a developing country. Is that something that Android does, or you do, or?
Yes, Android allows you, so unlike Apple, you just choose a tier, and that dictates the pricing for across all countries, which is a problem. As you know allude to, the Android allows you to go and select the pricing for every country, which is great, but also a big hassle because there's over like 100 countries, and so like I'll have a normal price and a sale price for like five different products, and so and you have 100 countries each. It gets quite a mess. But what I did is, yeah, I spent a lot of time actually researching. They call it the PPP, the price parity or price point parity, and trying to figure out the economics of every single country. You can do like what's the cost of a hamburger, try to get some relative cost. So I did all of that research to try to generate good costs, and then I actually started watching conversion rates, and I would just say, all right, this isn't doing so well, let's just lower the price. And so some countries like Indonesia, it's like $2, you know. So it varies greatly, uh, depending on the country. And it's unfortunate once in a while when someone notices it. So they're like, "Hey, my friend," I've got emails like this where like my friend purchased the app and it was only $8, but I'm seeing $10. But my friend, it's in Europe maybe, and like their friend's bank account is tied to, you know, Czech Republic or whatever, Czechoslovakia, and they're in France or something, and so that's like, yeah, oops.
Yeah, I guess
uh,
that is one a challenge. Hey, that seems like it's almost something where you could have some intermediary handling that for you. Have you looked into that yourself, or it's more something you just have to do yourself as an Android developer?
do you mean like hire help, like bringing someone to?
Yeah, or like maybe even some third party like SaaS kind of service that goes and uh, will automatically adjust the prices for you. It sounds like you were doing this through some manual process.
Yeah, it's spreadsheets and just tracking it. Yeah, a lot of things are like that where like you can reach out to get help, but then it's really beneficial to as a developer to be right at ground zero and see what's going on, and like have more control. Um, and same with support. Like I do a lot of support, I get like 20 emails a day. And it's like I'd love to maybe just hire someone to do that. But at the same token, I get to see firsthand what the issues are, and it's much more I remember working at Cerigo, and I feel bad for the support people who would get like the same kind of issues over and over and over, and they would just never be. By the time they got, put into a list of issues and given to a manager and then given to the devs, they were never a priority, and so they just linger forever. And so, like for me, having to deal with support, if I see like a low hanging fruit issue, it's going to get fixed right away because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to get those. Um, but there's sort of things like that, like the pricing, but it's also a lot of it's like a one off. I mean, prices do change over time on currency valuations, but it's like I haven't touched that project in a long time. There's probably a good like 6 months where I was focusing on that, and then I haven't touched it. It's been years.
Okay, interesting. Um, yeah, so you were also mentioning then you have some other stuff that's independent of this kanji app. Is that
Yeah,
public?
I mean, I love to discuss it. I mean, so one of the disadvantages of working by yourself, though, is you no longer have these coworkers, and so you have all these things you're building and doing, and then you try to tell your kids, and they don't care. So I'm happy to discuss it. Um, so the other project I work on, and I really like this other project because it has like virtually zero overlap. It's a completely different project. And so if anyone's familiar with Twitch streaming, I developed an extension for Twitch. And what it does is it's kind of my forte, just find these little niche areas. And so there's this game, kind of like Minecraft, and it allows you to build a world and destroy it in blocks, and it also has a lot of modding capabilities. And so what I did is I created a tool for streamers to allow people to pay money to interact with the game. So I've created kind of like an arcade, uh, where people playing the game live can all of a sudden have enemies thrown at them or holes dug around them. Things spot, the world will change around them, or a lot of these meta things where you can pay some money and then all the spawns double, and so I played a lot of Magic the Gathering when I was younger, and I love the idea of having these like little tricks that by themselves don't do much, but if you combo them, they can do really funny things. Um, so that's kind of like what I did with this. I would have things like, maybe there's one option you can do is put a bunch of dirt on top of someone and it all falls down. But another option you can do is dig a hole and put them in the hole. It's called stuck in a well. You maybe put them in a well and then do the dirt and you kind of just bury them. Just a lot of these things are just kind of fun. There's over like 500 different actions, so I just kind of went nuts with this, and so this is just a fun project. It's only about a tenth the size of my kanji app in terms of scale and revenue and other things, but the it's fun to work on. So
Yeah, that sounds
it's
like a cool idea. So with that, like Twitch itself has some marketplace, or this is something independent of it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's an app store just like iPhone and Android, but you don't sell the apps. They're just like you can install them like a browser plugin, and the streamer would activate them, and then they'll automatically show up on their stream or channel whenever someone goes and see them. And Twitch has their own currency. It's not a currency; it's a virtual good. This is Amazon. They do gray things. It's kind of similar, but they basically have this non-money currency, and you buy that, and then you use that as like tokens. And at the end of the month, you get a payout based on how many tokens were used on your channel. And so developers who create stuff on Twitch will get 20% of all the money that goes through the extension.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so it's really like I feel like I try to keep the Kanji Study app as cheap as possible to reach as many people as possible.
Mm.
Then the Mischief Maker, the Twitch app, is you only need like one person on it who just happens to really like it.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, and so you also mentioned like you're a father and are quite involved in raising your kids there. So are you kind of the main person doing that, or?
Yeah, since I'm able to be at home, you know, in the earlier days when I was still at the company, my wife would have to work shorter days. She'd work like 7 hours and come home early and get home for the kids. But that was only in like the first couple years, maybe 1 or 2 years. And then once I started going independent, then it was like, okay, well, you can work longer. I'm here now. And then now she just works really late. She's actually, because of that, she's kind of worked her way up. She's now team lead and has a bunch of people under her. I don't think she would have gotten this if she had to like, restrict her time. And so she's out a lot. And so yeah, so now I'm at home and then so I'll take care of dinner. On the flip side, though, is I'm still a night owl. Night owl. I like to work at night, and I'll work late, and then I'll just sleep in, which is great. Like the kids can get up and just eat breakfast and go to school, and then so that part I'm not usually awake for, but so I can just sleep in. But as soon as I wake up, I do my work, and then the kids come home. Like my daughter doesn't have after school anymore. My son's still young, so he'll have an after school program. He'll come home around 5, but my daughter will come home early. And so I'll spend time with her, and then my son will come home, and yeah, and then we'll do dinner. And I do a bunch of things. Like I read with them, and I have a little treasure box where if they read, they get a star, and they can trade in stars for things in the treasure box. And so we do a lot of that.
I'm jealous that you're able to sleep in. My kids are still younger, so waking up at today was 6 a.m. Other day was
Yeah.
4:30. So
It's
yeah,
weird
definitely.
thing to point out, but as someone who's been a father and had to wake up early for a long, long time, like it's one of the few things I really enjoy.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. And yeah, so like I guess more generally, as your kids have gotten older in Japan, are they going to then just normal Japanese public system school, or?
Yeah, I've looked in international schools, and it's tricky. It's tricky here. Like some are either not really accessible or really expensive, and so they're just going to public school. And so I basically took it upon myself to try to teach them their English, and then the rest I'm just leaving to the public schools.
And how's that working out for you?
So far, it's good. Where I live is convenient because the kids can walk. It's like a 10-minute walk, straight walk, no intersections, and they can just walk to school.
Yeah.
And so the school itself is very convenient. It's very nice. They do I'm sure you've done this where you can walk into the school. They have these open days where you can go and check out the kids and see them in the classroom, and they do that every year. And so I always go in and check them out, and so it's really cool. The school that they go to, there's not a lot of other non-Japanese. There's one other half in my son's class, but there's none in my daughter's class. So it's pretty limited. But it's also we're in Tokyo, so it's not like people are completely mind blown by having, non-fully Japanese student in their class. But I don't know. I went to public school, and I just kind of feel like you meet a lot of real people in public school, and so I'm kind of okay with them going there.
Yeah, I guess as a Canadian, it's kind of the default there to go to public school too. So,
Mm.
yeah, I guess, what was I going to ask? Yeah, so how about the English side of things? So you're just talking with them in English and they'll speak back to you in English, and that's coming along
No,
fine?
those so I speak Japanese, and
Okay.
so early on when I was raising them, I kind of had a different mindset. I let our friends who were like, "You can only speak English to your kids," and I was like, "Yeah, well, I want to connect with them. I really want to bond with them." And then they're in the beginning, they're learning some Japanese. Like I don't care what they're learning. I just want to like connect with them. And so I just like I don't care what you're saying. I'm gonna speak whatever I want to my kids, and so I did. And now they know I speak Japanese, so they'll just speak Japanese to me, even if I tell them to. And they'll speak English if I tell them to, but usually only for like 2 minutes, and then they'll switch back. But what I do is I have to then put them in environments. So there's a preply.com is a great website. You can get tutors, online tutors. And so I found a girl that my daughter really likes, and so she talks to her, and it's great because like, all right, this person, they even have Japanese people on the site. It was like no Japanese, not to be not to be discriminatory, but like I don't want my daughter to have any opportunity to fall back to Japanese, and so this works a lot better. And then I take my kids back home to Maine every year, and so that's great too because they know their grandparents don't speak Japanese, and so they learn a lot in those contexts. But with me, as much as I try to get them to speak English to me, they just won't do it or not for any prolonged period of time.
Okay. My older son's speaking English to me. I have a younger son who's just a year and a half, so he isn't really speaking yet. But
Yeah.
I kind of see my older son talks to my younger son in Japanese, and so my household's becoming more Japanese, and I wonder how that's going to progress. But
And how
yeah,
old is your older son?
he's 4.5.
Okay.
So I guess in my situation, like because I had been kind of independent from the beginning there,
Mhm.
I was kind of more involved from the get go, especially with him. And so, yeah, I guess we've always just talked in English to each other there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know how that's going to progress. Like, definitely his Japanese abilities are improving faster than the English
Yeah.
abilities. And so, like, one thing I was wondering about was the online tutoring thing, like you said, Preply.
Yeah.
So, with your daughter, from around what age did she start doing that?
It wasn't until later. I mean, she's 11 now, and she probably started when she was 9, maybe 10. So maybe one like a year or two.
Yeah.
And it helps. It's great. The Yeah, you're gonna find, I think, once the kids enter school, grade school, when before grade school, it was like, yeah, I had these friends at daycare, but really it's mommy and daddy that I'm like, I want to spend time with. And then once they go into grade school and they make friends, then all of a sudden communicating with these friends is way more important. And so that's when like their Japanese really kind of like trump their English. So I'm curious to see if you'll run into a similar thing. If you don't put your kids in international school, if you do public school, then yeah, you'll find that their friends are gonna be much more important, and that will dictate their speaking abilities, I think.
Yeah, right now I'm living in the suburbs of Saitama, so I don't think
Yeah.
there is even international school option here.
Uh,
There is some international people around where we're living, but yeah, they all communicate in Japanese first as well there. So, yeah, I guess it's a
Right down the
similar.
street from ASIJ. Uh,
ASIJ? What's
it's
that?
American School in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're like 4 million yen a year per child.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just that money, but then also just the kind of people who are going there are going to be quite different. It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a trade off, but you are setting your kids on a very different life path, I think, if you go international school versus Japanese school, and where do they fit in? And I'm not sure there's a right answer to that, but
that's
yeah.
tricky. I unfortunately I met a few people who went to ASIJ. I worked with someone who was a little bit younger, and he went to ASIJ. Like a, his mom was Japanese, and I forgot where his father's from, maybe Canada. But it was interesting to hear like his perspective too. And basically it's a lot of networking, but don't do it. Is what his opinion was.
Yeah, maybe it depends on the kid
Right.
as well. Like, I guess we figure public school will be the default, and maybe if there's some issue or something, then we can consider alternatives. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
still far ahead of us. Uh,
And everyone's different. Everyone's different. I remember when I first walked, it's kind of a tangent, but I remember when I first walked into Cerigo and I was talking to one of the employees that was just on his way out, who ended up being a good friend. I just visited him in San Francisco. Great guy. He's actually the guy who writes jisho.org.
yeah,
And Kim.
yeah,
I remember talking to Kim on the way out, and I was like, "Hey, Kim, I'm joining this company. Like, you got anything to tell me?" He's like, "Don't go." And he's telling me like, "Don't, this, abort, turn around." It's like the scene in Labyrinth. It's like go the other way. Um, And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm going from this Japanese company. This thing looks great, and it was. It was a great move for me, and I met a lot of great people. And I just know, like, I get it. Like now, I understand his context, and his context is appropriate for him to leave, but his context doesn't apply to everyone else. And so it's similar, same thing here. It's like, these schools may apply to you, but maybe they don't.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Cerigo was an interesting company. I think
Yeah, that's
I
how I met. I worked with. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of, when we first set out as kind of an independent entity, our first client was actually Cerigo there. And I think I
Excellent.
was like, did some Java on some mobile app you guys had or Cerigo had. And like, I didn't really know what I was doing there. But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
there was definitely it was like a hub of the international tech community. When was that? Around 2008 2010 there. So
Ergo did a great job of like collecting all these like really smart, clever misfits. So you just meet these really interesting people. There's a bunch of really fun people that went through that company.
yeah, I think like at that time there was so many or so fewer of these kind of like international tech companies that they were kind of stand out there for having this great development team that was international. Now we've seen these bigger Japanese companies who are kind of embracing it, and so we have a lot more maybe points or events going on. Like I remember back in the day they were hosting the Ninjava event, and that was kind of like the that and the Tokyo Linux Users Group were like the two international developer community events that were happening. But now,
Yeah, even that time too is fun because CookPad was doing their thing, and
yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah,
I guess it was kind of just starting up around then.
it was just starting up. Yeah, because Ninja was probably slowly on the way out at that time.
Yeah,
Zev was the guy who's running Ninjava, and he unfortunately moved back to the States. I think after he moved back to the States, it kind of like lost some steam.
yeah. He was the working at the first company I joined and kind of left ship to Cerigo partway through there. But
Oh,
yeah,
you worked with Zev?
yeah. He was kind of
Oh,
the I don't know what his title was,
wow.
but tech lead or something at the at
Yeah.
Ubit, the first Japanese company I got hired for, and I think it was like a kind of mini Cerigo there. In that I think our dev
Awesome.
team was a bit smaller, but was also
Yep.
this cool mix of people. Maybe some similarities on the business side as well, but
Oh,
between
yeah,
the
probably.
companies that they both had interesting journeys there. But yeah, um,
Yeah, definitely wasn't shy of drama and other problems, but fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I guess we have some people here in the chat. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask us?
And
Otherwise,
also mention that I'm working on the Mischief Maker and the Kanji Study. I'm actually working on a third project too.
okay. What's that?
So this one I'm taking courses in sound engineering and shaders, graphic shaders, because I'm trying to do something where I do. So when I was at Cerigo, just give a little bit of context, I worked with this guy named Devine, really clever guy who sailed the Pacific, and he's just an indie programmer, and he's a musician, and really inspiring. And so he was doing some things where he was getting some visuals and audio to work together in some really clever ways. And I went to a few shows with him where people are doing this, these giant projectors, and they would and doing things with visuals I've never seen before. And so this is kind of an area that I'm exploring now, trying to do some music. And so this is the um, very fortunate. What I'm trying to do is it's a non-commercial endeavor. I think I feel bad for people at this time trying to do a career in music. It's really hard, and so I'm fortunate to be in a position where okay, I have other projects that are floating me. Let's do some really experimental stuff, and if one person likes it, awesome, and then that's it. So, but that's something I've also been working on. That's been kind of taking up my time. But
That's cool how you get to kind of try all these different things there. I guess like one possible advantage of having an Android app or maybe the Twitch one as well is like you don't have servers, do you?
no, so
So
I have AWS for the
okay,
Twitch project.
okay,
Um, that's just a Node.js server. But the NoSQL stuff, like NoSQL is so cool. It's like you can't do queries, you can't do anything that you normally do. But if you understand it and work within those constraints, you can do really cool things.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I'm working on I use AWS and I do, it's all stateless. You try to like fake state
mm,
in certain ways. And you really try to minimize your read and writes. And if you do it well, then it's great because it scales. So my AWS fees, which normally could be really expensive, are less than 1% of the revenue, and that scales.
okay,
So,
awesome.
um, so I do have a server for that, but the Android app does not have a server.
Okay. Yeah, because like one of my challenges of being a parent with young kids is you have a business and you have kids, and sometimes these things collide, especially with stuff like I've had issues where I've been having to look after my sick kid, and then a server goes down, or there's some kind of critical thing with the business that needs attention, like right then as well,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
terrible.
always a source of stress. So I guess I'm at least with Android app. I'm sure you have these bug reports or stuff like that, but I don't know. Did you also have like these kind of critical things that need your attention right away with that as well?
Yeah, so the Android app, not so much because I'm independent, it's such a high priority to not have like lingering bugs. And so, I take my coding really serious and like any crash is like a huge embarrassment, so even back when I was working with other companies, it was always like, these apps need to be 99.9999% stable. And so that's what I work on. And so sometimes that really slows down development because I spend a lot of time making sure that like, the things are super stable before I move on. So the Android app is this complete autopilot. I just get a lot of emails from people who are maybe confused about something, have payment issues, or but nothing critical. The Twitch app, however, is a little different because there are certain things where authentication tokens need to be refreshed, and they fail to refresh, and then everything's breaking. So sometimes I wake up in the morning and I get 30 messages, and it's like, oh shit. Doesn't happen often, but does happen. Same thing with the project itself is for a particular game, and when that game gets updated, everything breaks. So I know when the updates come, so I can they're not like out of the blue. But it is something where it's like, all right, for the next day, I got to work on this, guys. I can't do anything. But generally, I don't have any of those kind of emergencies, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good. I guess like one disadvantage of doing a thing that's based on an integration like your Twitch is that you're kind of beholden to the platform and
Yeah.
any changes they might have. And how has your experience been with Twitch as a platform and their rollout of changes?
You know, as a developer, it's really hard to work with any kind of system that has a review process and you have to wait for your updates. So Android was amazing in the beginning. When I first started, the reason I gravitated towards Android was because it's just how their tools were good and how easy it was to deploy and develop. It was like a website. You update it and you find a mistake, you can just 5 minutes later update a new binary, and everyone gets it, rolls it out. So that also is how I made the app so resilient. It's just that as soon as like a bug report would come in, a crash report come in, I just fix it and then release a new update. Do a stage rollout, and so like very few people would be interrupted. I'm always really, it's like badge and honor whenever someone sends me a picture and they show they have a study streak of 4 years, this like 1,500-day study streak, and it's like that's amazing. It's not only amazing on your part for the discipline, but it's also amazing on my part that I never broke the app in a way that prevented you from studying.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
uh, but an Apple has the review process. Again, it makes it really hard. A bug sneaks in there, and then all of a sudden everyone's complaining, and you might prepare a fix right away, but you have to wait a week, for it to get released because of the review process. So Twitch is a little similar. Twitch is actually really hard, um, because it treats everyone the same. What I mean by that is like you go on Twitch as a streamer and you have limited privileges until you've actually accumulated like a little bit of a viewership, then you can start accepting payments. So until then, if you just sign up, no one can even use bits, their virtual good on your channel. You can't even receive money. And the same thing goes for developers. So if you sign up as a developer and you're like, oh, I want to create this extension, you can't even test your own extension because your account is not authorized for payments. And so I had to actually stream a little bit just to build up an audience just to get the ability to test my own extension. And before that, I was having a friend do it for me. And it was just a big hassle because what you do to a live review, so you submit your app and then they just check it. They don't tell you when. They say, oh, we went to check your app, but you weren't streaming. It's like, can you please stream just like 24 hours a day so we can check it? So it's a really wonky process. I now just leave the computer running all night and just like hope for the best. Um, but yeah, so working with those systems is tricky. I'm not sure if that was the original question.
No, I was just kind of curious of what that is like. And yeah, that's, I guess, always a challenge with any ecosystem there. And I don't know, maybe it's also a bit of a moat for you in that, like, not many people are going to be able to even get started with this. I wonder, like, is this extensions thing something they've introduced more recently, or has it been around for a while, or?
So they had extension support probably in like 2018, I would have guessed. And then I wasn't even familiar with Twitch. I had a friend, a really like a best friend growing up, who was heavy into games, and he was just really upset with his current job. He's working in insurance, and he started streaming on the side. And he was streaming this game, and he was trying to get some kind of integration going. Some people had some like really clunky non-extension, just like typing through chat and trying to get something to appear in the game, and it was kind of working. So I was kind of helping him do the same thing. And while doing this, I saw that Twitch had extension support. We can build these extensions, these apps. And being an app developer, I was like, well, that's interesting. I was like, I wonder if I could do this in a way that everyone can benefit from. And it was 2019 was the summer when they introduced bits in extensions. So before then they had bits. You can buy bits and you can just use them in a channel. Using just means basically you send them to that person and maybe it triggers an alert on their screen or something, and you can just give them money. And it wasn't until 2019 when they just introduced now you can use this virtual good in the extension and developers get 20%. And that was when I was like, huh, well, I wonder if this is even possible now. And so I spent a few months and I got like a MVP. I just got it so that you can click a button in a web browser and something appears in the game. And I was like, all right, this works, and so let's build it. And so I love Java, and I was working on Macs, and so at the time, and then this game only runs on Windows. So then I got a Windows machine. I had Linux as well, and um, so I started developing the desktop application in Java, which was in itself kind of an issue. And I had to go back into the history, like what happened to Java and the Oracle buyout, and what are the commercial licensing for Java now. And so I use an open SDK. Um, but it's really weird. Like people aren't used to running Java desktop apps, and I had to figure out how to bundle Java with it because people don't even have Java installed half the time. So I wrote this Java desktop app, and it's fun because it runs on Mac, even though no one ever runs it on Mac. Yeah, and then AWS backend. I had to learn C Sharp to do some modding of the game itself, and it's a fun project because this project, the Twitch one, is actually 8 code bases. So it's pretty involved, but it's complicated.
Wow, that's a bit of an ambitious project, but I guess it's the kind of thing you can hack on, I guess, when you got to that stage. I had one question from the chat about
Sure.
suggestions or stories related to when both parents are non-Japanese and having their first grader go to a public elementary school. Um, I guess that's not quite our situation, but are you
Yeah,
familiar with anyone?
my wife is Japanese, but going to public school. So I have friends here. I have like a good friend. She's Russian, and her husband's French. And then their kids go to international school, a French international school, and apparently their school is free, the French international one. So not quite the same situation, but they do live in Japan, and they did go to a Japanese daycare. And yeah, I don't know, their kids seem fine with it. Like the kids speak Japanese, and they speak some French and some Spanish, and even a little bit of English. And um, I think there's always going to be problems. I mean, it could be a language problem, but even if you solve the language problem by having like native speakers going to a native school, there's going to be other problems. So it's always tricky, and you got to navigate with your kids. But I don't know, like there's some bullying in Japan, but I feel like it's pretty minor, at least compared to where I grew up. So the kids seem pretty safe and happy here. Um, Maybe it's at a good school, but yeah, there's really been no issues. I mean, it was hard just as a parent. Remember in some of the earlier days, when your kid doesn't want to go, and then it was really hard because the at this time my son was going to daycare, and he just didn't want to go. And like I was working from home, and so I really didn't have a good reason for him to go. Did I just get more work done? I mean, he can go to daycare, and I can just focus on work. But he didn't have to go. He could stay home. And so it was like really heart wrenching for me to be like, you should go, but I know you don't have to, and you clearly are upset and don't want to go. And but I also know if I force him to go, then he'll get over it and he'll be more comfortable. If I don't force him, then maybe he'll just never want to go. I mean, now he's happy and he loves it, so I feel like it was the right decision. But at the time, it was really hard. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, that is a challenge as a parent. Yeah, I guess I have known of some people who both parents are international and then they send their kids to normal Japanese elementary school. I mean, I think kids are adaptable, and
yeah,
so especially if it's like a first grader, then you might have some challenges in the beginning, but eventually you can get over those hurdles. I think it also does depend on where you are going to elementary school. So some areas, I believe, in Japan have more support for that, like because it's more common. For instance, if you're going to an elementary school in Minatoku in Tokyo, there is some, I believe, some extra support specifically for English speaking kids there, and they have some, I guess it would be JSL, Japanese as a second language kind of support there. Whereas maybe if you're going to somewhere more, say, rural, where they don't have any international people there, then you're not going to necessarily have support there. I think one challenge might be actually on the parents' side. Like if you're not speaking Japanese there, I believe well, you have more experience with this, but as a parent, you're expected to get pretty involved in certain things there. So, like, have you been involved in the public school? Do you have to do anything there, or is it just
In the beginning, there's a little bit. I was probably even more involved on the daycare side. Um, the daycare is a little far. I drive there, but I drive there every day, and I drop them off and pick them up every day. But for the school, there is like some programs where they want the teacher, or, sorry, the parents to be involved. Just like organizing events and helping out with certain activities. But we did that in the beginning, and then there's like I think an option just to pay a little bit to get out, and I think we just decided to do that. It was easier. Um, but we attend all the school events, and we talk to teachers, um, but we're not super involved. Um, yeah, we just get literature. The kids bring home stuff, and we read it, and we make sure we're on top of things. Um, but yeah, I don't know, nothing too crazy.
okay? Okay, that's good to hear. I don't know if that helped.
There's a
Okay,
lot of things, when they're on field trips and they need certain things, whether it be the bento or there's it definitely is it's important to be able to speak the language and communicate because the parents do help a lot. And like I said, especially and we're in Suginami, and it's amazing how often they don't prepare meals, how often we have to do meals for our kids. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I love getting the flyers that have the kids' schedules in them, and when they do the open house, and you can go in, so you can actually choose like which class do you want to see. Like I want to see my son in in the math class, and or I've heard rumors about certain teachers, so I want to go see that. And it's a fun time too. You get to meet all the other parents, and you talk to them out in the halls, and
Nice.
um, yeah, it's
Okay,
funny. My daughter does not want me to visit her now. She's in sixth grade, so she's finally like, yeah, don't come, don't come.
you're gonna embarrass her. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And And then my son's the opposite. He has like social anxiety. And so once he sees me, he's like checking every 3 seconds to make sure I'm still there.
Yeah, I guess that's age
Not different.
difference.
Separation anxiety. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you had another question regarding iOS programming. Objective C is on the way out, of course, but how frequently is it used in Japan?
iOS programming is huge. I mean, it's
Uh, Objective C.
oh, Objective C is not used anymore. No, I
Yeah.
don't use
Yeah.
that.
No, that's also what we found on the developer survey. If you're interested, you can check out the results there. But Objective C is basically not used. I saw like
You
object.
can use it for Mac programming, and then back in the day, iOS programming. When it was sort of iOS, it was big, because iOS was big. And then as soon as they switched over to Swift, I mean, no one's doing like Mac applications. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I mean, Objective C is a fun language. It's a really cool language. I really enjoyed using it. And now I'm doing Swift. The only thing I haven't so my kanji app's all in Java, and I just haven't bothered doing Kotlin. It's like, I don't want, this is a massive code base. There's like no gain. I love Java. So I understand Kotlin, but I don't use it.
Okay, interesting. Uh, what's your impression on then the Android side? Are most developers using Kotlin these days, or?
Yeah, I think any big tech now has made the move, probably done a big migration, and so most big companies are probably over on Kotlin now. It depends. I mean, I'm sure there's probably plenty of legacy applications still in Java. If you're non-mobile, then there's probably a lot of legacy applications still in Java. Like my first job at that Japanese company I worked for was ERP software, if you're familiar,
Yeah.
enterprise resource planning. It's like basically like SAS, but or SAP, sorry. But it was all in Java. Just it was actually in Eclipse, and yeah, there's still plenty of companies that do that. But Kotlin, especially if you're starting a project now, like no one's going to start a new Android project now, probably in Java.
Hmm.
But unlike iOS, iOS doesn't. iOS really wants you to do Swift. You have to really do a Swift now. But with Android, you really can do both. Like they really support both quite equally.
Okay. Yeah, I think Java. Well, Java has such an ecosystem around it as well, and like Objective C was just used for Mac stuff, but
Right.
Java's there's tons of opportunities for Java developers in Japan still. Um, okay, so how interested are your kids in your work, and do you teach your kids any coding at home?
Yeah, being like a geek dad, I definitely like bought into my my daughter was first, and so I spent a lot of time trying to introduce her to geeky things. And unfortunately, it wasn't really in her DNA. So she would have some interest, but it'd be limited. She was more into storytelling and other things. So that I kind of gave up with. But my son he loves games. He loves all this stuff. He's already said he wants to become a programmer. He's young, so I'm not teaching him programming per se, but he's big into Minecraft and these other games. And so I'm sometimes a little worried that if you push things too young, it puts kind of a sour taste in their mouth. Like they maybe don't like it, and then they'll never approach it again because they just have that memory of you trying to force them to do something they didn't like. And so I'm kind of waiting for the right time to like really introduce it. I think my son is going to be really excited to do it. My daughter, not so much, but my daughter, she does other things. She loves to draw, and she's a great artist. And so, uh, yeah, I'm supporting her that way.
Cool. Yeah, there's tons of options for kids and programming, and actually, it seems like that is one area where uh, Japan there is more going on with Scratch and programming lessons for
Yeah,
kids and stuff there.
my son
So
uses Scratch, and there's a Minecraft club that he wants to join. Um, and I'm kind of happy for him to join it, but I see it as like just a lot of me taking him to places so he can just play more Minecraft, and I'm like, you just play it at home.
so do you ever like worry about him playing too much games?
Yeah, we try to keep an eye on it, like because I'm here. I'm with him a lot, and we do limit it. I actually will ask him like, "Hey, what time are you gonna play till?" And he'll say like, 9:30, be like in 40 minutes. I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." I always let him kind of pick it, and because he always picks short times. He's always like 30 minutes out. I'm like, "All right, that's fine," and he'll stop. Um, and he's good. He's good about it. There's always that concern. I gave my daughter a phone. I got her an Android phone, and then it was just quickly to like the YouTube. It's just such like a mind-numbing effect. You just pull you right in. The little all the shorts, like the TikTok kind of videos. And so after a while, I was like, you know what? No more phone.
Yeah.
So now when she gets home, she has to give her her phone. She just has it when she goes out for contact.
Okay, interesting. So we had another question. Is it possible as international software in Japan to own your own house or property?
Of course,
Yeah. Do you own your own house?
I do.
Okay. So
So
what?
this house I own, and then I'm renting a place.
Okay, and so what was your experience then like in buying a place in Japan?
Yeah, that was interesting. Working with the banks, I love getting into the numbers of things. I'm running my own business. I'm paying very close attention to the numbers and how things work. And so it was like the banks would offer you three different kind of loans and they have all these different uh, interest rates depending on how you structure your loan and how you do your payments. And so I did a really deep dive and I was negotiating them in Japanese. I was trying to negotiate lower rates and everything. And I see it as a compliment, but they're like, at one point, they're asking me, like, do you work in the banking sector? I'm like, no. Like, do you really know your stuff? I'm like, dude, this is a lot of money. I'm trying to pay attention here. And so, I worked with an agency and I looked around. I thought it'd be great to like build a house, but I ended up finding a house that was pre-built. That was pretty much what I wanted. It's nice because all the doors go right to the ceiling. I'm kind of tall. I'm 6'3", like 184 centimeters. And so it's nice that all the doors go right up to the ceiling. And so even my friend who's like 7 feet has no problem walking around a house. And so, I like the house. It's in a really nice location. And yeah, so I just had to negotiate and it's just me on the loan. I got it after I got my AJUCAN, my PR. So, um,
Okay, and at that time, were you still employed at a company?
yes, yeah. So, it's like I have some other friends who also want to go independent, and I highly recommend if you can do it, just get your PR. your PR first and do everything you need with your PR and your job. Because a lot of that is contingent. They look at your job and they're like, all right, how long have you worked at this company and how long has the company been around? And, basically how safe is this investment? And so at the time, it looked on paper looked great. And then I
Yeah.
get all this stuff. And then I'm like, all right, I quit. I'm out of here. But I already got everything. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I guess as long as you still make your loan payments after that, they don't care. But or is it
Yeah.
tied at all to your employment status? Did you have to do anything after you quit with your loan?
No, no, nothing. They don't care at all. Japan is amazing though. There's been a couple times where like not always. I actually have one case where it wasn't good, but like I've missed payments just through accidents, and then they're like, yeah, whatever, just pay us next month. So they're not. I mean, if you just try to like bounce or do something bad, then like I'm sure they'll go after you. But like they're really flexible here. I feel like in the States they always try to harp on any opportunity to like get more money out of you or something. But here I even one time I was in between jobs and like I didn't pay health insurance. It just did because it was coming out of my paycheck and then I was in between jobs and I was trying not to pay. I just didn't. The bill never came. I never paid. And I had to go to the doctors for some things. And then later they're like, oh yeah, you weren't on health insurance, but you can just retroactively pay and everything's fine. So it's like no, even at a time you're not going to make you pay fully for the health things we did. We're actually going to treat it as if you had insurance and you just go back and pay. And I was like, wow, this seems unheard of to be able to do that, with no penalties. Um,
Yeah.
so the only one time I got tripped up was in Japan. There's a law where if you leave your company, then you can keep your previous health insurance for up to 2 years. And because what's interesting is that usually your company will pay for half your health insurance. So your health insurance is half what it normally be if you're going independent, just paying it directly. And then when you leave your company, you can actually just pay that same reduced amount for 2 years. I was like, that's amazing. I can save hundreds of dollars a month. Um, and it's great. The insurance companies don't want to do it because they're just basically not making as much money. They lose the payment from the company and they have to offer the same insurance. So they're really not excited about it. So you have to manually pay them every month. They're like, we're not going to set up any kind of automatic withdrawal because we don't like this. But if you manually pay us every month, you're fine. And I paid them at the end of the year for January. And my banks in Japan, sometimes the banks go on vacation, like the machines go on vacation. And the interface of the website wasn't clear at all. I made the transfer, said thank you for the transfer, and then I got 2 weeks later, I get a notice saying I'm kicked off insurance. And I went back and looked, and that transfer never went through. And I didn't know. And it's because they were like, the machines were taking a holiday. And so, yeah, so that was one time where I did get tripped up for missing a payment. But generally, there's no penalties for missing payments, which is really nice in Japan.
Yeah, yeah, I've had a similar experience. I guess like Japan, as long as you're kind of going in with good intentions about things, it normally works out. Um, I had one more question about how long it took for you to get your PR. So I guess that was 10 after 10 years you applied?
Yeah, I was like right on the 10-year mark. Um, I didn't apply any sooner. I've had someone who applied, a friend who applied at the 9-year mark and didn't get it. So I was like, I'm not even going to apply. I'm just going to wait to the exact 10-year mark and then apply. But there's two ways to get a PR. There's you can get it through your career. You can just show that you've worked here for 10 years. Or if you get married, you can kind of go that spousal route. And it's interesting because like the application is a little bit different. Like if you go through the spousal route, you actually have to write like an essay about how you want to contribute to Japan and whatever. You have to make an argument for PR. But if you do the career route, you don't do any of that. It's like an application. You just send in like your history, and they decide on the merits. And I really didn't want to write an essay. So I just said, well, I've been working here, so let's just go. Even though I'm married, I'm gonna go the career route, and so I did it that way.
Oh, I thought it was the opposite, at least. Anyway, that I thought if you were going through the spouse visa, it was basically guaranteed. Um, I don't know. Like
I might,
they have a
but
section for you to write something in the application about your reason why. When I went for my PR, it was similar in that I was just on a working visa. I wrote some letter about that was like a page long. I don't know if it helped or not, but um,
I
Yeah.
felt really bad. I remember that question they just said, and mine was like one sentence. I'd like to live in Japan. It was something really, really simple.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I guess there is a third way that has been introduced more recently with kind of points based
all
approach.
the special
Um,
points, yeah,
yeah, like if
the
you
accelerated way.
if you have enough, if you're making lots of money and meet some other criteria, it's possible to get it in as little as 1 year there. But yeah. Um, okay. Is there any more questions? We'll maybe give people one last chance to ask things and then wrap this up. So I see a couple of people
I'd be
typing there.
curious to hear a little bit about your side, though.
Okay,
About your,
sure. Sure. Ask me
yeah.
what you want to know.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, we were first introduced. I'm sure we just spoke briefly back in the Cerigo days, but I would like to hear a little bit more about what you've been up to and how you structure your business and what you're doing now. And
Okay, sure. I can repeat that. So, like, basically, when I saw you, I had, when I was working with Cerigo, I had started my own company with a couple other guys, and we were doing consulting around mobile web in Japan and then, like, other kind of freelance-ish development projects. And so, yeah, Cerigo was a client there. And while we were doing that, we had one side project, which was Doorkeeper, this event registration system. And
yeah,
so that was just started for something kind of fun to do. And it, over time, it began to pick up users in the Japanese tech space and got to be pretty popular with having thousands of events a month on it. And so, yeah, I shifted my focus onto that. And it took a while, but eventually we moved from a freemium model to a subscription model where all the organizers had to just pay to use the system. And at that point, it finally was generating enough revenue to pay my salary from that alone. And so, well, Doorkeeper was happening kind
was
of
that
a,
your side project or was that a team project?
so it started off at Mobiline. I had two co-founders. We started then a company, spun out Doorkeeper, and that company I had one co-founder, and then that co-founder kind of left before. Well, he was kind of tangentially involved, but he decided to move out of Japan. And kind of when you weren't in Japan and didn't really have connection to the user base, he
Yeah,
was kind of wanting to move on. And so I
so
was
kind of
actually then at the point that maybe I should move on as well, and was kind of even considering shutting down the service, but decided why not just try charging people to use the platform.
did you get any pushback? Like that transition going from free to paid, was there some pushback there?
So I think like we had a lot of goodwill built up in the community, and I think I did like a good job of being really transparent about this, and that we had been doing this basically for free forever, for like 5 years or something at that time, and that there wasn't really any other option we saw. And so, yeah, we understood not everyone was going to continue on with us, and that was kind of fine with us. But yeah, we wanted to be able to continue to provide service to those people who did. And so, yeah, I think like overall, yeah, our usage maybe dropped in half there, but that was still pretty good. That
Yeah, that's great.
like the organizers who were using us the most heavily were obviously the ones who decided to continue. So maybe there
Yeah,
were lots of people who were more casually using it who didn't continue or switch to some free platform or something else. Um, but yeah, no, it was enough to continue to support us. We had the kind of like it was kind of tricky in that it was both a B2C and B2C C service in that B2B and B2C. So we had some customers who were using it as individuals, for which our point of 1,500 yen per month was expensive for them. And then we had other businesses using it who were saying that's too cheap and you should
It's
be
a steal,
charging
yeah.
more. We did have some tiered pricing for that, so we were able to capture some of those heavier business needs from it, but it was just tricky for me. Like I set that price of 1,500 yen per month as the floor because like I figured if people are willing to pull out their credit card and pay us anything, like that's around what they're willing to pay there. And yeah, so that kind of worked, but then that we had this subscription product that was earning us enough revenue to pay myself a salary. I was like turning then how can we actually increase this revenue for the project, but I was kind of unsuccessful for that, and so our kind of churn was equal to our growth, and so it
Yeah.
basically stayed the same for a couple of years. And then meanwhile, I had TokyoDev, which had started as my personal blog and kind of just me writing about being a developer in Japan. And then it grew. Then I had people asking me questions about how to find a job here. Started a mailing list for sending out jobs that morphed into a job board. I had people successfully finding jobs through it, so I knew it was valuable to businesses and started commercializing it. And so TokyoDev, well, Doorkeeper, the revenue was going flat, and I was investing a lot of time in it because it was quite a complex product. TokyoDev, which was basically just a static website and a mailing list, was growing a lot on the business side. I also is maybe similar to you. Like with TokyoDev, I have more of a connection to my users, and I've had like when someone gets their first job in Japan through TokyoDev, it's like changing their lives, and I love having that impact. I love that it is helping people in like a really individual basis. Whereas with Doorkeeper, of course, it was helping organizers, but you know, our product maybe for them was
Yeah.
10% better than the competitor or something, and like it's not a big part of their life necessarily to hold these events. And like we had way more users with that, but for each user it had just maybe small impact on their life. So I kind of prefer now. I was preferring this business where I was having maybe less people overall that I'm helping, but helping them in bigger ways. And then as a business, it was getting to the point that it was doing better than Doorkeeper. And then I was also having my second son on the way. And so I'm like, I need to do something about Doorkeeper. And I was able to find a buyer for it and sold that like 2 years ago. And yeah, it's great that like they took over running Doorkeeper. They've kept the pricing the same, but they have been adding new features and stuff to it. And
That's great.
yeah, it's been now fun that like I've started organizing events again and running them through Doorkeeper as strictly a user. So that's been a fun experience too.
I get people contact me all the time trying to buy my app, but it feels scammy. People will like sit down and want to talk to me, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, do you even know what kanji is? Like, what do you want to buy my app for?
Yeah, I guess with like a Android app, there's probably some metrics they're just like looking at, and I saw you have like 1 million plus downloads or something, and so
Yeah,
they probably do it that way.
about 3 million downloads right now,
Okay, wow.
and then And depending on the Google now does it by region, but it's generally a 4.9 rating. So I think they just see those kind of like stats and they're like, hey, we'd love to hijack that app. Um, I don't know what they plan to do. That's the thing. It's like I would, if someone wanted to buy it and I knew they had like good faith to continue developing it, that'd be like, okay, maybe, and I can focus on other things. But I'm like, I don't know. I just keep working on it. It's slow. People wish they had more things coming out, but it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there theoretically are brokers you can go for that, but I guess that is
Interest.
always like kind of like as a developer when you've built an app yourself, it's kind of like your baby in a way, and you maybe have to let it go at some point, but you want at least to go in good hands there and not just become like, I guess with Android, some malware or something there that.
Yeah, exactly. It turns into some malware. I don't know.
Uh,
It's funny, we use that analogy talking about treating projects like a baby, but someone put it, put something very interesting in a way that really changed the way I see things too. Where I was talking about with a friend where I want to work on these projects, but it's hard because I have these two kids now and they're taking a lot of my time. And he's like, "Well, your kids are a project. It's like here you talk about you don't have time for projects, but your kids are a project." And it really was like, man, I really need to think of it that way because I need to say like, hey, the same effort and energy that I'm putting into these projects, I need to put into my kids because they are also a project. And so, we talk about how this project is a baby, but the baby is a project too. Yeah. Um, and I
yeah.
wanted to mention too with the I do think that the second project of mine, the Twitch one, is really it's fun because I have a similar effect where so you do things called user stories where you say you develop a product and you actually hire people to sit down and use your product and you film them. You get to see like what are they tripping up on and what are they what's their first impression, what are their facial expressions because maybe they're saying more and they don't know how to like you know how to put that in words and tell you about it, but you can see it, if you were to observe someone using your app. And so it's a big thing called user stories that people do. And what's interesting with Twitch is that you get free user stories all the time. You get people using your product and you see where they're like, well, how does this work? Doesn't make sense. And you can see, you're watching them live stream it. And so it's been a really fun project to just keep tweaking. I just watch someone use it and I learn something. I'm like, oh, the wording on that wasn't clear, or this thing isn't intuitive enough, and or like, oh, they expect it to be this way, and it wasn't. So maybe I should try to match expectations a little more. And so that's been really fun. And then also on the same side, I've gotten a lot of people who've reached out to me and said, hey, I really wanted to Twitch stream full time, but I couldn't. But because of your extension, I can now make a salary. And so thank you. And I've had dozens of people tell me this. And so that's been, I mean, like part of me is like, wow, it's amazing. I'm so glad that I've like, given you a tool that you can now create, kind of career after. But at the same token, it's like, this is probably not the career you want to make. It's very tumultuous. It's very volatile, so it's like, I'm super happy I'm able to help you, but I'm also kind of worried for you.
Yeah, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess like kids have also then had an impact on me on thinking about stuff like just the time frame you're dealing with children like is with my businesses I've always been much more focused on kind of the short term and like 1 year away seems like a long time before having kids, but now like 1 year feels like nothing to me there because
Right.
like everything just with kids takes time there, and like it's just, well, biology, you can't really rush things there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, people ask me when the iOS version is going to come out for Kanji Study, and I tell them like probably end of next year. People are like, "Well, that's so far away," and I'm like, "Dude, that's like not enough time."
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Would starting your own business help with getting PR? Um, I mean, I was running my own business when I got PR. I was running it on an engineering visa, which was a gray area or maybe even not supposed to be doing, though one immigration consultant told us otherwise. But yeah, I think maybe they've gotten stricter on that. I don't know, but I put that explicitly in my PR application, and I still got it. I think with any of these things. Like if you're having that 10 years work experience and you haven't like been arrested for anything, you've paid all your taxes and social
Yeah.
insurance and stuff like that, it's basically a sure thing to get it. I don't think
I
they'll
think it's
reject
easy to
people.
see it from their perspective. It's like, here's this immigrant. We just want to make sure they're not going to be riffraff. They're not going to be a drain on our social program. Basically, can they sustain themselves? Can they contribute? Are they paying taxes? Not causing trouble? And so if you have indicators that indicate that, you're going to get it. But if you're in between jobs a lot, unemployed a lot, and you look like maybe you can't hold a stable job, or maybe you have a job that pays very very little, so they're worried that you're maybe like right on the edge, and they think you're kind of a liability. That's when you don't look good. Um, but I think basically if you look like a safe person that will contribute to the society as they see it, then yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And so, yeah, another one was asking, is it possible to get PR with N5 level Japanese? Well, you can get permanent residency
yeah,
with no Japanese
you can get this deal
skills.
Japanese.
It's
It
not,
does help though. It's the same. It's probably minor. Like obviously, I'm not part of immigration. I have no idea. I just have anecdotal experience. But again, if you get into that mindset, if they see someone with N1, they're gonna think, "Wow, this person's really invested." Like this person wants to contribute. It's gonna look a lot better. Sure. Is it gonna make a difference? I'm not sure, but I'm sure like it will help. But not having Japanese won't stop you. I have plenty of people who speak no Japanese and have PR.
yeah, so N1 or N2 Japanese does give you additional points for the points based approach. So if you have that certification, it might help you get PR faster. But I think as part of the normal PR application, there's actually nothing that assesses your Japanese ability there, as far as I
Right.
remember. I guess you can write. You have fluent Japanese or something as part of it,
Well,
but
you have to explain the reason, like you said, like in my application, it wasn't a whole page, but you're just given a little spot to say what's the reason you want. So there's your one opportunity to write some Japanese. So there's a little pile of assessment there. And
yeah,
then, but like you said, otherwise, then you just put whether you've passed the JLPT or not.
yeah, and you can theoretically get someone to help you write it in Japanese there anyway. So
I had the JLPT N2. I got that like 3 years after entering Japan. And then I took the N1, but I failed by a few points. And then I was like, I'm done. So I actually haven't taken the test in like 10
okay,
years.
yeah, I've never taken a test for that. um,
Yeah, it was a great motivator. It was a great like goal. It was like, all right, I'm gonna study really hard because this is my goal. And that was fun. But as soon as I got a job and I was working, I was like, well, what's the goal? Like, I don't need this anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's always tricky is balancing all these things like working. So when you first got here, you mentioned you got. Did you when you first came here though? You got a job right away, or were you studying?
Yeah, so I'm from Maine. I was in Boston actually, and I met this guy, and he was telling me like, hey, they're trying to hire people in Japan. I was like, hey, I'm kind of interested in living in Japan. And he's like, yeah, why don't we come do an interview? And I was like, okay. And it was at a McDonald's. It was so weird. I'm like, interview this guy at McDonald's, and I'm like, is this legit? Like, I don't know what this is. And he's like, yeah, and you're hired. I'm like, really? I'm like, all right, whatever. But I didn't speak any Japanese when I came over. I mean, I took like a class at the university, but it was very basic. I knew a few like aisatsu. That's about it. And I have a funny anecdote. When I came here, I was working for a company, and like one of the few words I knew was wakarimashita, and I would just you say wakarimashita after everything because it would just end the conversation. I didn't know what else to say, but they say a bunch of stuff, and like they're explaining like how to open the door with your pass, and sure, okay, I got it. And I would just it was like my get out of jail free card, so I just use it all the time. And then they're like, "Oh man, we brought in the past we brought in Chinese people. They had no problem with the language. This time we're bringing a bunch of other people, Westerners, huge problem with the language. We're gonna send everyone to Japanese classes." And I'm like, "Oh, I want to go." And like, "No, but your Japanese is perfect." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you understand everything we say." And I'm like, "No, I don't understand anything you say. I just say wakarimashita a lot."
Get into
So
trouble
I
there.
missed the first round of Japanese classes, and then they finally realized, okay, actually, this guy doesn't speak Japanese, and then they put me in. But that was fun. But
Okay. Okay, yeah, you had mentioned how you were studying Japanese through your work in the beginning, and that's when you got that N2.
yeah, yeah. So then I joined the company. I couldn't even speak well when I first joined, but then I was in this environment. No one spoke English. And so I just study every day, studying the trains, every moment I got. And that was also a big reason why I started building the app. Is I was getting the mobile programming, and I was just studying. I bought all the books. I had just tons. I have a bookshelf full of books. I was just studying all the time. I had the White Rabbit Press made these flashcards, these kanji flashcards, and I was also like, I was drilling them all the time. And I was like, man, I want this digital. Like this is painstaking. Um, but yeah, so I did a ton of studying those 3 years, and then at the end of it, I was giving lectures in Japanese and leading teams, and so that was fun.
Yeah, I guess that's one advantage of joining a less international company there is that you have this opportunity to improve Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, my Japanese was better before joining Sarago, and it's only gotten worse since. Because yeah, the environment's all in English, and then you have kids, and then you're supposed to only speak English to the kids. My wife actually gets mad at me when I speak Japanese to them. So it's like I'm almost punished for using Japanese. Uh, so
Hmm,
yeah, it's definitely worse now.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I used to have all this great vocab, like this really obscure vocab. I would just be studying and learning, and right off the top of my tongue, and it always impressed people. And now I speak basic Japanese.
Well, I guess you can still get by though. So
Yeah, I can get by. I mean, I can always ask if I don't understand something. If I'm one on one with anybody, no problem. I'll have a conversation for hours. But um, sometimes listening to some conversations, I'll miss things. It'd be hard.
yeah, that's always a challenge with when you have a bunch of natives speaking the language and joining in. At least for me.
Yep. Yeah. And so now you're working on TokyoDev. What's a typical day for you like?
Okay. I guess like today I dropped my kids off at the uh, Hoikuin and Yochien around 8:30 or so. Then came here, got kind of set up for this and whatnot, and then that goes through till 3 or 4. I normally making dinner, so I prepare that while they're there, which I guess technically I'm not supposed to do because I'm not really working then. But it's just so much easier to get that stuff out of the way before they get home, and then pick them up, bring them home. Around 5, they normally come home, and we have dinner. My wife is working remotely, so she can usually end around then as well. And then, yeah, take care of the kids in the evening and get to sleep, then get up early. So, yeah, basically, my two things are looking after the kids and working. So, like, two full time
Yep.
jobs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's similar for me. Just like, you kind of have to structure around the kids because like they can't wait at the daycare,
Yeah.
So you figure out, where you got to be and what time, and then just fit everything in otherwise.
But yeah, I guess like I'm lucky that I have this flexibility because I don't see how it's possible to have like both parents working full time and having kids. Well, I guess you have to sacrifice a ton of sleep, I suppose. So
Yeah, I
um,
think about it often. Like, yeah, like sometimes I wish I can put more time into my projects, but it's also like, what are other people doing? Like, how is this even possible? Yeah.
um, yeah,
But
so
my
fortunate.
kids are a little bit older, so like now, although they don't like it, sometimes they're at the house by themselves, like very shortly, like an hour or something. But it's rare, it's kind of new, but they're just slowly starting to be able to do that. My daughter can take care of my son, and so I'm renting a place in Shimokitazawa, so kind of like a hipster place, and I got a little office there. But what I like about my office I got is I found a place that has a basement, so it's actually 2 stories, and it has a basement. It's all cement, and so I'm making kind of like a sound room. Um, with this music project that I'm doing, and just having a space. Like it's fun that my friends come down. I have a bunch of records, and we just blast some music and then work on stuff. And I really, really like it because for years now, 5 years, I've been at home and it's good, but there's just constant distractions, whether it's just doorbell ringing because people are delivering stuff or the kids are coming home or whatever. It's rarely I go like 15 minutes without a distraction.
Mm.
And so this office is great because I don't register the address anywhere. Nothing ever gets delivered there. So now when I go there, it's like no one is interrupting me, and it's really really good. It's good just to have that separation too. Like at first, I had no problem working from home remotely, but it really does start muddying like the space when it's just like this work home space. It'll be like I'll be tired at night, 1 o'clock, and I feel like I need to work. Um, and so this is having this other space is really nice. I can go there, and it's almost like I don't have all the normal distractions. There's no TV, there's nothing, and so I don't have a TV here either. But I don't have. All I have is my laptop. Here I have like all my screens, and so I have like 10 things running. But there I just go with my laptop, and I'm just working. And I looked at doing like the WeWork kind of stuff, but it's cheaper just to rent in a small apartment and like have all this stuff. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so
If you can rent like a normal residential-ish place for your own business purposes, it can be a lot cheaper there, I guess.
I'm a
Uh,
tax accountant and how this works. So like it's not an office. So for it to be an office, I need permission from the landlord and changes the taxes. And so landlords typically don't want to do this. But if they support it, they do. But what I'm doing is I'm actually just renting a second house. But because I'm using it as GAGO as an independent person as for work, I can still expense it. But it's
okay,
not. So
okay. Yeah. I was lucky, like I incorporated TokyoDev at the end of last year, and I'm renting a house right now, and the landlord was fine with me using it as the office. So
perfect. Awesome.
that just avoids having another hassle, like just because I have to get the mail here before I've used like shared facilities, and either I need to get the
Yeah.
mail or have them forward it to me or something there. But yeah, yeah. I guess I'm someone maybe who is okay with working at home, and I haven't. I've been doing that for the last almost 10 years now. I
Wow.
can I guess I can just shut off and not work at night. Basically, after my kids come home, I don't work. So that's been okay.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I love it. And I still can do it, but yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to get out more. I wasn't seeing people. Just need to get out.
Mm,
I love that shared space. I really do miss working with people and just kind of like bouncing ideas, and you
yeah,
get really inspired. There's a lot of people I work with who are just doing really cool things, and I get really inspired by it.
that's awesome.
Yeah, you should come by and check out the office. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, that does sound awesome. Okay,
You're in
next time I'm
Chinatown.
in Tokyo, maybe I'll look you up.
How long does it take you to get to Ikebukuro?
It's about an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's probably like another half hour from there.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's the one disadvantage of living out in the suburbs now is like my life here is good, but it also means I'm a lot less willing to go and see people, go to events or something like that. I find excuses not to go in just because the
Sure, I mean, it was one thing when I had to go into town for work, and then I'm already in town, and there's some event, Ninja or whatever. It's like right there. Like,
mm,
cool. I'll just after work, I'll just stop by. But now I'm in a position where it's like I've been home all day, lounging, and it's like 6 o'clock at night. I don't want to then travel out an hour to go to some event for an hour and then come back. It just seems like too much.
yeah.
Um, so I hear that, like, and that's part of the reason why I like having this office because it forces me out. And then now while I'm already out, now everything's less inconvenient to go join or.
Okay. How long does it take you to get to your office from your home?
So it's about 5 kilometers, and I mostly bike, but I drive a lot too. There's a parking lot right next door, and it's pretty cheap parking. So especially at night. So at night, if I go at night, I drive, and then during the day, I usually bike. but I can take the train too, and it's a single train. And either way, it's about 20 minutes door to door.
Okay, cool. That's not too bad.
Yeah, so it works out well. If I drive at night, it's like 15 minutes. That's the best.
Uh, cool.
Yeah, that's another thing that's fun is driving in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're not having to go too far into Tokyo, I guess. Are you?
Yeah, but I do drive a lot. I go to festivals and camping and other things. I have this a K car. I love the K cars. They're so cool. Like these, you don't even buy them in America, so they're kind of unique here, and they're just tiny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a lot of the roads. If you guys ever ride a taxi, you sometimes will see, but some of the roads are just ridiculous. They're like barely fit one car, and they're two ways. And then if someone coming in, you have to like go into like someone's driveway to get out of the way to let the person go through. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, the interesting thing about driving in Japan for me is that there are the laws around driving, but sometimes you have to ignore them just because of like, I don't know, there's some intersection or something, and it's just the way you need to go. You kind of need to not follow the
Yeah.
rules there, and it's like, yeah, they have a lot of confusing intersections there, and I've ended up
Why
driving.
learned about the difference between a white solid line and a yellow solid line. So do you drive in Japan?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you know the difference between a white solid line and a yellow solid line?
I studied that, but
Right? So like I was like, actually I'm not sure what was the difference. And so either one you're not supposed to pass. It's basically a no passing line. But the yellow one means okay, you can kind of pass if you have to. It's okay. But the yellow ones are more strict. You're not supposed to. You can actually get like a ticket for it. But the yellow ones you won't get a ticket, but they don't want you to.
hmm,
Um, but you'll find that I mean, there's a lot of times like I'm driving around and there'll just be like some giant truck just parked in the road, and it's like not even like on the side, just covering the entire path, and so you have to like drive around them and cross. And so of course you're gonna like cross the line there. What are you gonna do?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Someone was asking about the uh, change from driving on the right side to the left side. Was that an issue for you?
No, it wasn't. But I will say that there are times. What happens is that as soon as you just kind of orientate yourself. You see people on the other side of the road. The driving, steering wheels on the sides. So you always hug the center line. Never had a problem switching sides. But once in a while, if I'm ever on like a really tiny road that's kind of like a one way, and so you're not necessarily on the left or the right, you're just kind of in it, and then you're also turning onto a road that's not very clear, and there's no traffic around you. I've probably like two or three times just like turned onto the wrong side, not really thinking and like, oh shit, I'm on the wrong side. Done that both in Japan and in the States, but it's only in those times when there's like almost no context and you're kind of in like auto mode. But generally, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I think I did something similar. Like the first time I got back from Canada and was driving again in Japan, like every time you switch, like in the first day of driving or something, you run that risk. But I guess part of it, one thing that does make it easier is normally you're also sitting on the other side of the car. So,
Steering wheel kind of like forces you to.
yeah.
It feels awkward as soon as you're like driving on the outside of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think
that,
it'd be more awkward to have like an import car that doesn't have the steering wheel on the same side, and then you're forced to drive. Then that'll probably be a lot more awkward.
yeah. Yeah. My father in law has one of those, and I don't want to drive it.
Yeah.
It's pretty confusing. Um, yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for having this chat with me. It was good to reconnect, and I think people enjoyed hearing us talk because, like, this is normal stuff for us, but not everyone, I guess. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
so,
this feels like the exact same conversation we would have had if we just went out to lunch.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of how Tokyo Dev started. Was me just putting up things that would happen otherwise there, and so maybe we can kind of reuse this conversation, and it can be useful to other people. But yeah, it was fun just talking
Well,
to you anyway.
I'm sure I'm 40 one now. Yeah, I'm sure 20 years ago when I was looking in Japan, I would just be curious of what people are doing, what's possible, get a little inspired.
Yeah.
So hopefully this inspires someone. You can definitely come over here. I just sold. The only asset I had was a car, and so I sold my car, and which amounts to selling everything I had, and moved over here. I told all my friends and family I'll probably be back in 6 months, and then here I am, 17 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, well, thank you,
Okay.
Paul. Thank you for
Okay.
what you do. I think this Discord server is great. TokyoDev is a great resource, and so keep doing what you're doing, and I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing what you come up with.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, likewise. It was great to learn more what you've been up to, and I look forward to learning more. Maybe you. I don't know if you have. You've definitely shared about the kanji app and share your stuff, but have you shared about the Twitch stuff?
What do you mean by share?
Just like we have share your stuff kind of channel
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah. No, I didn't. I did a post about the kanji app. I didn't. I can do something about the mission maker.
I think
One
that
point.
that would be cool. Just maybe someone else is interested in doing some Twitch development. It's definitely a unique thing. First time I've heard of that, so it'd be cool if you
It's such
could.
a my I've been kind of burnt by like trying to explain the project a little bit, where I tell some like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing with Twitch. Like, what's Twitch? And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, let me explain what Twitch is, and then let me explain this other thing. And it's such a
Uh,
unless you're familiar with Twitch, it's such a hard one to
yeah.
explain.
Okay. Yeah. No need to
No,
do.
share it, but I think I didn't instinctively think to share it because yeah, I'm just used to
Yeah.
people not having any idea what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I
Okay.
understand.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well. Nice chatting with you, and maybe talk another time.
Take care, Paul. Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.